All right, we're going to get straight into it here. We're joined by Blair Gordon, who's a member of Hustlers University, an alleged pyramid scheme in which the Tate brothers coach people to be financially independent. Blair, what were your initial reactions to the arrest of the Tate brothers?
My initial reaction was pretty much the same as everybody else's. I mean, it's horrific, and if it is true, then obviously they deserve to have the book thrown at them. But I think once people started to investigate and the media released, their version of events, it quickly became apparent to anybody who's capable of any level of critical thinking that something was amiss. I mean, even the charges themselves are not entirely believable. Like, why would somebody of his status and wealth, who's clearly socially competent, sex traffic women? It makes no sense. I mean, I think it's pretty accepted, regardless of which stance or which side of the argument you're on. He's an intelligent man. Why would somebody like that purposefully put himself into the spotlight for the whole world to see? Bearing in mind, at one point, he was more Googled than the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and you can look that up themselves, while at the same time committing abhorrent acts behind the scenes, and hoping no one catches him.
It
It
seems
makes
hard to believe.
it makes no sense, no matter the angle you try and attack it from.
All right, and the Tates, predominantly Andrew, had sit-down interviews with broadcasting powerhouses such as Piers Morgan and Tucker Carlson. Why do you think they were able to grab the eyes and ears of the online world? I mean, it's unprecedented, really.
I think we live in a society now where it's perfectly acceptable for people in general, mainly the opposite gender, to demonize and shame men for practically saying anything and everything. I mean, imagine being a young boy growing up in a world where it's normal to hear your peers and your elders, generally of the opposite gender, saying men are trash, mansplaining, toxic masculinity, the patriarchy, and openly encouraged by society to do so. I mean, this whole narrative of, female empowerment and sexual liberation, but not a word on the many struggles of men, are mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a man who has every characteristic and trait that the majority of men desire, honor, strength, intelligence, respect, status, wealth, brotherhood, the ability to fight and defend yourself. The main narrative this person is pushing, that it's necessary to be a man. And I think it's resonating with a lot of men. It isn't something, sorry, to be demonized, avoided, or ashamed of, but, you should be encouraging it and celebrating it, because it's always been and will always be necessary to be a man.
Yeah.
Large contingent of men across the world who are sick of society telling them that they need to act and be something they're not. Like, no mother wants a weak son, no wife wants a weak husband, no child wants a weak father. So why is society perfectly okay with telling men that it's okay to be weak and powerless and not to seek accomplishment or status? I don't understand it personally, but when in reality it's not the case, and it's having a huge detriment to society, in my opinion. I mean, when you consider all of these things, it's not surprising at all when he's the only male figure of such repute who is proudly, spreading this message to the world for seemingly no benefit, and has plenty of risks for himself, to reputation, his business, I mean, his family. They've been
Yeah.
harassed, regardless of the purported agenda. I think, that the opposite side are saying to him, I think personally, is objectively helping men, me personally, take responsibility for themselves, their families, parents, and reigniting the duty that men have always had and seem to have forgotten, unfortunately, to the world and society.
Because we haven't seen anything like this. We haven't seen a social media figure come out and be so public about sort of male values and how you should be as a man and what you should do to make money and stay in shape. We haven't seen that. And I think governments and the powers that be are just sort of surprised that a man is sort of mobilizing all these young men to be motivated and fit and wealthy. I just don't think we've seen anything like this before, which is perhaps why they've come down so hard on him.
Yeah, no, I
And there has been video footage posted publicly of Andrew allegedly mistreating women physically. What do you say to those that believe he doesn't respect women?
I mean, I think if you're referring to the video of the woman on the bed with
Yeah,
the
that's the
belt,
one. Yeah.
yeah. So that same woman has now twice come out to dispel allegations, saying in both videos that it is consensual sex play. I said twice because even with the philosophy widely accepted in society now, believe all women, people were still accusing her of making the first video under duress, and it seems that people only believe all women when it suits them, which is huge hypocrisy. Then she had to create and post another video stating that it was obviously not true, and that she was the one who instigated the activity, and it was obviously purely consensual. I mean, I think it's ridiculous for people to say that there's a man who has little to no respect for women that is being chased by thousands of women, you know. And I think it's predominantly in the West that this narrative that he's oppressive and misogynistic is running. You know, I think in other countries it's not the case. You know, there are plenty of women. I mean, you see even of the older generation who actually like and respect what he says. And I think the people nowadays have too much of an emotional response to certain things, and logic and critical thinking goes out the window. And I think when you look at what he says to the letter, you'll struggle to find anything that is even misrepresented as misogynistic or, you know, disrespectful towards women as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, he's tackled these accusations as well head on. I mean, the Piers Morgan interview, for example, he was put on the spot and he tackled it head on. He held his own in the interview. Piers failed to sort of trip him up. And you know what Piers Morgan's like, he'll try and trip you up and catch you out. But Andrew held his ground.
Oh, anyway, doesn't he? Because of
Yeah.
his so
Yeah, no, that's it. And both the Tate brothers have reportedly been exposed to inhumane conditions whilst being held in Aoud prison in Transylvania. It's deemed the most notorious in Romania. Do you think their notoriety is impacting their treatment in prison?
If I'm honest, I don't have much of an informed opinion on their treatment in jail. I mean, I'm sure the conditions are far from luxury, and on top of that, you know, it's pretty much accepted as a corrupt country. It's hardly surprising in said country that they are not exactly doing things to the book and, you know, entirely humane. I mean, Eastern Europe has, you know, by and large, a reputation for a reason, and I don't think the system would be an exception. I mean, it's not to say that it's, however, as I said, I don't have too much of an informed decision on that.
I mean, come February 27th of this month, it will be 60 days in total that they've been incarcerated for. And with no substantial evidence, it does seem like a bit of a far-fetched to be keeping someone locked down for that amount of time. I mean, I don't know about the laws over here, but I think there's got to be a period where if you don't have any evidence by a certain amount of time, you have to let them go. You have to be released.
As far as I'm aware, it's 180 days, and it's in 30-day increments that they can keep appealing to courts to extend the period.
So, I mean, we could just see it keep on getting extended at this point. Okay, let's talk about the finances of the Tate brothers. From an online webcam business to casinos and OnlyFans management, which they've both been very public about and very honest about. Do you think the Tates can comprehensively say their fortune is legitimate?
I mean, I personally see nothing wrong with it. I think if two or multiple consenting adults agree to make money together and it benefits both parties, who is to say that it's not legitimate? I mean, let's not forget the webcam work is by extension considered sex work. So are all of the OnlyFans models illegitimately making money also? You know, I mean, again, it's one of the double standards. I mean, what happened to women's sexual liberation, female empowerment, my body, my choice? You know, I think that other women, they like to use these terms when it benefits them, but you know, obviously, as people and as people of the opposite genders, we have varying opinions and things. So I think when other women see women aligning themselves with Tate and benefiting from it, I think that narrative of believe all women and as I said before, you know, sexual liberation and so on, it kind of I mean, until further information comes out, who's to say that their fortune is not legitimate? I mean, as far as the information and, you know, however many months that whichever governments have been investigating, where is the evidence that it's not legitimate? You know, and gambling is, you know, obviously legitimate. There are plenty of casinos. I mean, America has built half of its, not half, but a portion of its reputation based off of Las Vegas, you know, the gambling capital of the world.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem they're taking advantage of a market that is so lucrative at the moment. So you say OnlyFans and gambling, they're just lucrative markets, and it seems to the naked eye that these guys are just sort of taking advantage of a market that's very lucrative at the moment in our present day.
While your statement is correct, they are taking advantage. I mean, I think that phrase in itself is slightly misleading. It's not like they're misleading women and taking advantage of the women. They're just
you're right.
I think is the better way to put it.
Yeah. And just a quick one, just to finish, where do you see the case going in, say, the next 2 to 4 months? Where do you see the case leading? Because we've just had a revelation last night that a few news broadcasts have released that the WhatsApp messages have reported to provide evidence that the Tate brothers were being framed by two women in particular. So what's your opinions on where the case is going to go forward from this point?
I mean,
can you see them being released? Can you see them being found guilty?
I mean, I personally, I think that eventually they will be released. I mean, my opinion is that they have not committed any wrongdoing. I think if they had done, it would be already apparent. I mean, they have already had multiple people who have more to lose than to gain publicly defending them on multiple platforms. Obviously, they can't defend themselves. They've been, they've been taken off of. But I think that, yeah, as I said, I think at this point they're probably, as I said before, that I think there is, some kind of agenda. I mean, you don't see anybody having a coordinated attack being deplatformed in the same way they were. And as I said, there are numerous people defending them. If something was there, I think it would have came out. I think at this point they're just stalling for time. It could be any number of reasons. I think they will be released. Hopefully so. But again, I implore anybody to apply critical thinking. You just got to wait for the evidence. And with regards to the WhatsApp messages, as much as I think it could be used in evidence or defense, it is very loose to use the term evidence for that. I mean, it's not been what's it called? Entered into evidence in the court, as far as I'm aware. So, I mean, the validity of it is still to be questioned. As I said, I mean, I support Tate, but you still need to employ critical thinking and rationale everywhere.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what this case turns out. But that's a wrap for us. I'd like to thank Blair for joining us today. Stay tuned for more on the Tate case and recent developments.